You can help support and promote the show by purchasing our merchandise at cafepress.com/Packard Pokes At, where you can choose from a variety of different items like hoodies, hats, and bears. Oh my! Put a Packard Pokes At mug in your hands today.
Do you like Packard Pokes At and want to hear it on demand and on the go? Download the free app today at Stitcher.com. Available on iOS, Android, Nook, and iPad.
This is Packard Pokes At, and I'm poking at your news. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another fine edition of Packard Pokes At. I am your immutable and unmutable host, Packard Sonic. And joining us tonight from the far middle of nowhere is Dave, you're damned.
I'm not in the middle of nowhere, Packard. I'm in the state that's giving you a high five right now.
That's right. Oh, that's right. I forget I live in the middle of nowhere. And joining us from the far west coast is Connie, Practical Magic 9.
Okay, Packard, we need to keep this show over 50 miles per hour or it's going to blow up.
Oh, no! Wait, we blow up every Friday night. We must have one of those cartoon shows where every time the bus blows up and then you see it 2 minutes later driving down the street just fine, like nothing happened. So.
You need one of those little signs like the coyote you can hold up. Help.
Help! Yikes! Maybe next week I'll make a little sign and say, help me. So. This is episode 170. So we have about 30 more shows before we get to 300, or 200 rather. And I would like to put together... I can't do math.
Take off your shoes, Packard.
I'll take off my shoes next time.
Look at there.
If there are any particular clips from the show that you like, on the 200 show, I'll play a couple of them. I don't usually do clips on the show, but I figured, it's a 200 episode. I might do a couple. So go to packardpokesat.wordpress.com and select a few. They're all listed there. And then go to facebook.com if you want to get on Facebook and tell us what clips you'd like to see from what shows. Or even just email us at packardpokesat@gmail.com or ppapodcast@gmail.com and let us know, and I'll put some stuff together. Anyway, all right, we got a great show for you tonight, so let's get on to our first topic for this evening.
Building a better future, science and technology.
Sex. Yes, we're going to talk about sex. We're not going to just talk about sex any place. We're going to talk about sex someplace where 99% of the population of the entire planet doesn't get to have sex. We're talking in outer space. They've been doing experiments over sex in space. Not with humans, because if they were, I'd be first in line to sign up for that. Honestly, I'd be like, you want to have sex in space? Sure. Where do I sign? I would sign up for that in a heartbeat.
He signs up.
I'll sign.
As a matter of fact, Packard would sign off on his heart for that.
I would sign up for that, and I would sign up for that in a heartbeat. I am definitely afraid of heights, but I would sign up for that in a heartbeat. But right now, what they've been doing, actually in Russia, they've been doing this. Over in Russia, they put space in sex. No. No, over in Russia, what they've been doing is they've been taking certain animals out in outer space, and they have been checking to see what it's like for these animals to have sex in space. Some of the animals are as a set of geckos. Now, what is really interesting is the fact is that, at least I find it interesting, it's just one male and like 4 females geckos. So this gecko, he got it going on. I could just see they got a little gecko Disney ball, deco ball, going on. Just to get the mood right. No. actually was on board a satellite as part of an investigation to see what it would be like for animals to have sex in outer space. I don't know why, because I don't see little gecko spaceships being built around the Mojave Desert anytime soon, and the geckos going out into outer space to have sex. But they're checking out the...
Well, John McCain lives down there. They want to get out of the neighborhood.
Right.
I don't know.
There's actually an investigation into the sexual activity and reproduction in microgravity being carried out by the Russia Space Agency. They've also put other animals out there, like hamsters and a few other things, and roaches. And one of the things that one of the people said that one of the animals had given birth in outer space, I think some of the cockroaches, they said that they run faster than ordinary cockroaches and are much more energetic and resilient. Yeah, that's exactly what we need, is more resilient cockroaches, because we don't have enough problems killing the cockroaches we have already here on Earth. Let's make them more resilient. Good plan. Good plan. Dave, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a cockroach named Nadezhda. I'm not certain on the pronunciation, but it was the first animal. Well, the article says it became the first animal to give birth in space. Now, we don't necessarily know that for sure, do we?
No. We technically were all in space, so technically, you know.
Well, yeah, we're all in space right now.
Right.
So they're completely off on that.
Right, and they should have said off-world.
Right off the bat.
Yeah.
They're wrong.
Right, exactly. They should have said off-world, then that would have been more accurate, you know.
Yeah. What I find interesting is, so scientists can film geckos having sex in space, and that's cool, but if humans have sex in space and we film it, I'm going to say that that's a multi-billion-dollar endeavor. Space porn. It's the final
Space porn!
Well, there you go. There's our funding.
There you go.
For NASA.
Exactly.
Again, I would be happy to do this. I would happy to be experimental number 3,207, you know, or how many people gone up there, I don't know. Do you have any last thoughts on that, Dave?
Yeah, I think that what the practical application of this, or the reason that this would be beneficial is for the eventual situation of our own space travel. And if we venture away from Earth and we're on any kind of voyage that takes a long period of time, we would need to reproduce in space. And I think that we want to know what kind of barriers, what kind of different problems we might encounter, so that we can properly address those situations and know what to expect before we're actually in the situation.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because, they can grow crystals out in outer space, and then the crystals, when they grow crystals, for example, on Earth, the crystals don't grow really well, but in outer space, they just flourish. So,
they're
biology...
They're looking in this experiment to detect possible structural and metabolic changes in the animal that might happen. So.
Right. That was my point. Is that since there's no gravity, who knows which way the stuff is going to flourish? I guess I don't know about all that great stuff. I mean, I'd love to, but
And this isn't being done in complete zero gravity. It's just low gravity.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's called the vomit comet. Well, of course, if they really want to study human sexuality in outer space, they just got to watch James Bond, in that one scene, Moonraker,
Yes.
You got to make sure you wrap the blanket around each other very tightly. Connie, your thoughts?
Actually, geckos can either mate just one gecko to one gecko, or this is basically a small harem like this is normal for geckos. They just need to be the same size, because if they're small, a smaller one would get picked on. That's just what I know about geckos. My daughter used to have one. But the thing about the effects of space flight on just our human body is that the fluids in the body increase. They can press on, optic nerves, and there can be, I think that they also said, like the face and the head, the fluids at first they tend to swell upward. Bone density decreases, which rights itself once the astronauts come back. And there's also increased radiation levels out there in space, and there's extremes of temperature. And so, if we're talking about a woman carrying a child, in her body, as it is when a woman's pregnant, her blood volume increases between 25 and 40%. So, I don't know if things like edema, again, we would have to, if we went out in space, we probably would not want to be exposed to zero gravity. We'd want to have some way of maintaining a certain level of gravitation in there. But
well, I just want to comment on something. You said that the fluids expand, right?
That's what I was reading.
Okay. I was just going to say that then a space bukkake would definitely be out of the question.
I'm curious how they're going to encourage the geckos to mate, though. Are they going to put on some Barry White, and have some gecko porn going on in there?
Some sexy music in the background.
Yeah. And like you all said, like we needed a bigger and better cockroach.
Right.
Really, thank you. We already know that if and when anything happens, rats and cockroaches and bacteria are going to thrive. They don't need more help. So.
Yeah. Well, George, if we're going to put cockroaches up there, we might as well get started on that spray that George Carlin said he wanted to come up with. It says it doesn't kill the roaches; it just fills them with self-doubt if they're in the right house.
Rim shot. Yay, Carlin.
Anyway, all right, let's get on to our next topic for this evening.
Well, I'm not the brightest crayon in the box.
Speaking of Russia, there's a couple of guys over there, and they decided, we're bored. Let's try something sciencey like. So let's take a microwave apart and then see what happens. There's this great video on YouTube. They took a microwave, the stator or whatever the electro gun that's in the microwave, and they attached a tin can to the end of it.
The magnetron.
The magnetron, thank you.
Yes.
And there's this great little clip that's on there. They're shooting the magnetron at a board of lights. Now these little lights are not connected to anything. They're just literally just taped right to a piece of cardboard or cement or something. And as they point the magnetron at it, every one of these things lights up. It's accelerating all the atoms inside the lights. Later on in the video, they are walking away from the magnetron, pointed at them, and they got some kind of radiation detector, and it's still picking them up through wood and several, I don't know, I couldn't tell because they're speaking Russian how far away they were, but it looked like it was a fairly considerable distance how far that magnetron was actually still going. And at one point, they pointed it right at a radio, and the thing fucking exploded. If you're having one of those days, you're really bored, don't try this at home. Please do not try this at home. Dave, your thoughts?
I'm a little skeptical as far as how dangerous the radiation necessarily is. I think that the high voltage that's in the oven is probably the most dangerous element to this entire experiment that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The radiation that's in a microwave is actually a non-ionizing radiation. So ionizing radiation actually is strong enough to actually completely remove an electron from an atom or molecule.
Okay.
And that's why it causes radiation poisoning and cancer and all of that. Non-ionizing radiation isn't necessarily that strong to be able to do that. Now, there's a debate that's going on as to whether or not non-ionizing radiation, microwave radiation is included in that category, whether or not it could cause cancer in humans.
Okay.
The International Agency for Research on Cancer seems to believe that it potentially can, although they don't have studies that are conclusively saying that there is. But the health debate does center on non-thermal effects of radiation at much lower frequencies.
Okay.
Or much higher frequencies, rather. Microwave, millimeter, and radio wave radiation aren't necessarily as dangerous, at least not as directly as ionizing radiation would necessarily be, which is like UV radiation. The different things known to cause cancer. So it's important to recognize that we're getting bombarded by radiation every single day from background radiation. And,
oh, yeah.
basically the more radiation that you're exposed to over your life, the higher likelihood of cancer. But, just zapping someone with that microwave doesn't necessarily pose the immediate threat that some people might believe that it does. It's also important to remember that as a safety precaution, there is that screen inside of your own microwave oven in your home. So even if it were a potential hazard, the wavelength is not able to escape your microwave oven.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, there is one thing, though. The military has been experimenting with this type of technology as well. They actually have trucks with a big microwave dish sitting on the top of it, and there's supposed to be a passive way to stop like a horde of people, a whole bunch of people coming at you. They just fire this microwave at people, and it makes their skin, the closer they get to it, it makes their skin nice and hot, and then it really quickly, and they will run the other direction. I saw this great video where a reporter, he took a bed or something, and they were trying to hold on to it as he's walking to it towards the microwave thing there. But as soon as his fingers got hot, he dropped it, and he got really hot, and he had to run back the other direction. Yeah,
it's important to remember also that with that military application, they are drastically increasing the energy per quantum of the microwaves in order to get that effect. The microwaves that are in your oven aren't going to be that strong.
Right, but just don't try to stuff yourself in the microwave in the process to test this out. So.
Well, or anything that produces a large amount of heat and energy.
Right, exactly. I did that with a phone book. I when I was a kid, I was trying to dry it off because it got wet somehow. I can't remember how it got wet, but I tried to dry it off, and the thing started smoldering inside the microwave. So everything tasted a little funky after that.
Oh, God.
Connie, your thoughts?
I spent some time on this guy's channel, and honestly, they are more in danger of dying of fire and explosion. They like to blow things up. They like to burn things. Their little house that they live in, or where they conduct their experiments, is like a cement floor, and is a good thing. They did this one. So after a while, I got tired because I don't speak Russian. There's no translators, so I got tired of listening to them talk because I couldn't figure out what they were saying anyway. So I found a looped clip of Beavis and Butthead laughing, and I put that on in the background, and it was a lot more fun.
Fire!
It was just laughing. Actually, on the article at the bottom, it's a translation from Russian, Kriosan, describing their channel. Our channel video about unusual experiments with electricity, experiments and inventions. Here we share new ideas, different from the majority of habitual thinking. And most of the habitual thinking is that you should probably wear goggles and safety gear when you perform all these things. It's just they're kind of nuts. They might accidentally kind of discover something, but I don't think they're writing down in a journal all the things they've discovered.
Right.
So.
No, but they're filming it and putting it on YouTube so that other scientists can do the action.
So other future Darwin Award winners could reproduce their findings.
Right. Let's see what happens when we put this microwave electron gun up to my friend's nuts.
Timmy, you go out here and I'll get behind this lead shield. Gonna need another Timmy. Yes.
Anyone have any last comments on this?
No. Next story.
Well, we will get to our next story here in just a moment. But if you would like to make a donation to help keep our stories getting out to you, you can go to patreon.com/Packard Pokes At. That's patreon.com/Packard Pokes At. You can reach us also on email and a few other places, and we'll give you all that information here right now.
You should contact us by email at ppapodcast or packardpokesat@gmail.com, and follow the show on Twitter as @PackardPokesAt, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/PackardPokesAt, or just type Packard Pokes At into the Facebook search bar. Call our Google Voice at 662-709-PPAP or 662-709-7727, and leave a short message and we will play it on the show. Join in the show live Friday nights at 9 p.m. Central Time at vaughnlive.tv/PackardPokesAt. Download and rate us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Mixler Radio, and watch the show on YouTube. Visit our show page at packardpokesat.wordpress.com for links to the stories and purchase merchandise from cafepress.com/packardpokesat to support the show. For everyone that rates us, you are awesome sauce.
And thank you, Joe. Even though he's not here on the show tonight, he still manages to slip himself in there. Anyway, let's get on to our next topic for this evening. And tonight we have a video for you, so let's go to that clip right now.
Just this week we saw President Obama sign the LGBT non-discrimination bill, which says basically there are no religious exemptions. The government cannot contract with religious organizations that discriminate against the LGBT community. And, our mutual friend Todd Starnes asked me about that, and I said my problem with that order is that it paves the way for the next executive order that would say, well, the government's not going to grant tax-exempt status. It's not going to grant broadcast licenses to any organization that holds on to its religious beliefs that homosexuality is wrong.
You're right.
You're right. You're right. They're just gonna start taking on the churches right off. The government's just gonna come down hard on the government. The government's gonna come down hard on the churches. You know why? Because wait a minute, we can't, because it's called the First Amendment. As much as I would like to see the churches be taxed, and I would like to see a lot of these broadcast things. I don't want to see them shut down because they are full of comedy. Which we feature here on the show. But if you think that your religious rights are going to be taken away because they don't want your hate speech and your hateful attitudes, tell people that, hey, because of your sexual choices, or not, I shouldn't say choices, because of the way you are and the people you sleep with or the people you love is the same gender as you are, then you're not going to give them a job or you're not going to work with them in any way, then you know what? Then you should be taken down. That's just my opinion, of course. Dave, your thoughts?
Well, I've got a few thoughts on this. First off, his entire argument is the slippery slope fallacy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that should be noted. Second off, as far as the IRS is concerned and all of that, and the tax exemption, in recent, a week or two ago, the Freedom from Religion Foundation did reach an agreement with the IRS in their court case that was going on. And basically, what they found is that the IRS is now agreeing to pursue churches that do break the law in the tax code.
That's good.
That's to say any church that is preaching politics or is endorsing candidates as a church their tax exemption will be taken away.
Good. That's the way it should be.
Nothing to do with Obama.
Right.
That has nothing to do with this finding. That's a separate court case, and it's actually... It is the tax code. It is what the IRS's tax code says. They're just now agreeing to follow the law that already existed.
Right.
Anyone who doesn't do that, any churches that don't preach politics, they still get their tax exemption, and there's no problem with that. I mean, it's a conditional privilege that they have.
Right.
And it exists to ensure the proper separation of church and state.
Right, exactly. Because
so that being said, another thing with what Obama did sign is he did sign this non-discrimination act. It does not have a religious exemption in it, but what it does include is that religious organizations, religious companies still do have the right to give preferential treatment to people of their religion.
Yeah.
So they can't necessarily discriminate against someone, but they can still give preferential treatment to someone who agrees with their religious beliefs.
Yeah, that's like that case a couple of years ago where this lady, she got pregnant by artificial means in the church. She sued the church, and the church, they sided with the church because of their religious convictions, or I guess whatever reason. But
right.
It's so that would basically support that, that they're supporting the religion in that case, and not the individual's rights, because in that case they're a private company, I guess. I don't know, whatever they are, but it basically supports what you just said, that they're going to support whatever religion, give preference to the religious personnel who are working for them.
They can give preference to someone, but they cannot discriminate against someone based upon their sexuality.
Right, exactly.
That's essentially what this law says.
Right, exactly.
And it's an executive order. It is not. They tried to get this passed through, Senate and Congress through a piece of legislation, and it just won't pass right now in our constipated system.
Yeah.
And it would be more powerful if it was a piece of legislation as opposed to an executive order. But, with Obama's hands being tied and wanting something to be done, he did sign an executive order, and I'm glad that something is on the books now as opposed to nothing.
Exactly. Connie, your thoughts?
Something on the Right Wing Watch website, they point out that back when Roe versus Wade happened in 1973, the churches were all doom and gloom. They were saying that, because we do not want to endorse abortion, they thought that they were going to get their licenses and everything taken away. They're going to lose their tax exempt status.
Right.
And that didn't happen. They've got to play the persecution card wherever they can. This Jeffers, he's First Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas, and he's the pastor there. And he's actually an equal opportunity bigot because he thinks that any church that's not of his particular brand of Christianity are satanic. You
don't follow my religion, you're a Satanist. I declare.
I would like to see churches lose their tax exempt status on a lot, maybe on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think a lot of churches, they'll run things like soup kitchens, they'll run different charity organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if they proselytize from that organization, that they should lose their tax exempt status on that too. I think that would be another advance in that.
Yeah, so basically they're holding their sandwich hostage until you hear the word of God. You can't eat until you hear our word. We don't care if you're starving.
They run daycares, they run preschool things. Granted, if you're actually enrolling your child in a Christian school, I suppose you might expect that, religion might be a class that they have, but they should be more circumspect, they should be under more scrutiny for what exactly they're teaching, and what they're preaching and who they're preaching it to. So.
Oh, absolutely. And there are certain situations where if there are two parents and one parent is religious and the other one is not, for example, and a child is enrolled into a religious school and they use that child's enrollment to preach then to the non-religious parent, that is grounds for having any government funding or anything to the school taken away.
I think so, yeah.
Legally, that's a case that can be made.
Well, let's hope so. It's that somebody will eventually make that case with the IRS and the Freedom from Religion Foundation as well at some point. Let's get on to our next topic for this evening.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars.
And on tonight's Did You Know They're an Atheist, we're going to be talking about Wes Craven. He's a film director, writer, best known for many horror films, including the famed Nightmare on Elm Street. He was also featured in an iconic Freddy Krueger character, The Scream, with films along The Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes. I heard that one was really creepy. The Serpent and the Rainbow, The People Under the Stairs, Vampire in Brooklyn, Red Eye, and My Soul to Take. So if you like horror films, give them a check. Personally, myself, I don't watch horror films, but I'm fairly familiar with Wes Craven's work. Anyway, he was interviewed in Fangoria magazine. Fang asked them, he says, "You've discussed the order in which you've killed people in films, that it's very important to break a circle of support. There's a particular character in Soul, Penelope, who dies early on. She's a very God-fearing and pious and could hold an emotional connection with Bug." I have no idea who Bug is. I have not seen the film. Seeing as how you've said the film is partly autobiographical, does it speak to your own relationship with God at all? And he says, yeah. Formally, I don't believe in God, because I think people's minds are too limited to even have a concept of whether there is a God. And I believe religions have done much more harm than they have done good. So there you go. He just says right there. He says, I don't believe in God. So there you go. Dave, your thoughts?
I love the Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
They were very big when I was younger, yes.
Granted, the first one is the only one that he had a large impact on. The third one he had a little bit of impact on as well. But, I mean, when I was in junior high and, old enough to watch them, as many as were out at the time, I would sit there over the weekends and watch all of them in a row.
Yeah.
And just absolutely loved them. Wes Craven is brilliant in certain ways. I do like horror films, but to me, horror films, I'm not scared of supernatural things because I don't really necessarily, I don't believe in them.
Right.
So to me, horror films, at least as an adult, are more comedy. I laugh at them. I sit there and laugh. And Freddy Krueger is especially funny character to me in horror films. He's always got these clever, corny punchlines, and it's not straight horror per se. It's more. It really does have that comedic edge to it that I find gives it more layers than just being a straight up horror, franchise. Yeah. Another interesting thing about Wes Craven is that he got his undergraduate degree in psychology and then went on to get a degree in philosophy.
Yeah.
And I think that really is a meaningful thing that he puts into his movies and his stories. Obviously, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is really an examination of your nightmares and dreams intersecting with your waking and your reality and your conscious life. And I think that he does a good job of examining that and bringing questions about what would happen and different elements of that psychology and philosophy to that. Another notable thing about him is that he actually got his start making porn films.
Well, I wouldn't mind watching those, I'm sure,
Yeah, so he wasn't in them. He was in the production end of them, and
well, that's what I mean. I wouldn't want. I'm not going to look to see to watch him. I'd be just go watch the porn.
Yeah, right. No, but he did a lot of porn films in his early career before he started making horror films, and he did them all under fake names. So you can't necessarily figure out which ones were him or not, but you can sure watch movies and try.
Right. I'm giving it the old college try. I'm watching as many as I can. Yeah. Wait, did I say that out loud? Joanne's in the chat room. Gecko space porn directed by Wes Craven.
Write that down.
Write that down, someone. Your thoughts, Connie?
There's a couple of different things he says about his views on horror, and he says horror films don't create fear, they release it. Right. It's good for the psyche because he says it helps us to manage our fears in a kind of organized way. And I think of all of his films too, I mean, I love the first Nightmare. I didn't see it until it had been out several years. I saw it in 1993, 94. And it's actually one of those I've sat down with the commentary running and talking about how they did all the effects. It was really innovative. And I love that these characters, obviously some of the people are caught, the teens are caught unawares, but how Heather Langenkamp's character fights back is by using her mind and setting traps inside her own mind. She takes charge, and it's really great. Freddy Krueger is really dark. It's dark humor, but it's fun. It's funny, and that's good because it helps release that tension, so that really the scares have a little more impact. So yeah, I guess by all accounts, Wes Craven's just this really sweet, nice guy, real quiet and unassuming. You kind of all the actors. It was a happy birthday thing because his birthday is tomorrow, and he said I went to his Twitter and he said, "Oh, I got this present from." I don't know who it was from, but it was one of the actresses that had been in his movies and compiled this whole thing of all those different actors talking about him. and he was really touched by that. So yeah, interesting guy. And not all of his stuff is horror. I want to point out that the movie The Music of the Heart with Meryl Streep, she's a violin teacher who wants to teach violin to inner city kids. Actually, Meryl Streep won an Oscar for that movie. And some of his horror is actually more psychological. It's not so much just jump scares and slashers. So I can't recommend everything he does, to more sensitive people, but it's worth looking at, and I like it. I love horror also. So
yeah, I like to sleep at night because I know my psyche, and it's like I'd be. See, I haven't said I watch it.
Packard, and the monsters aren't real.
No.
It's okay.
No, I even do this with like regular TV shows. Like if I start watching a series, for example, and then it starts getting into my dreams, and I start dreaming about shit like this. So it's like so I'm like, okay, it becomes part of my psyche for a little while. Like, so I like sleeping at night, and since I have to drive a truck, I don't want to see Freddy Krueger coming at me. Actually, Dave was saying about how he laughs at the horror movies. I did watch one. It was called House. I actually had to laugh my way through that one. If I didn't, I probably would have.
Which one?
It was just called House.
I know, but there's two.
Oh, the first one. The very first one.
Oh no, you're talking about the one with the Vietnam veteran.
Yeah.
The guy. Oh, okay, with William. There's a Japanese movie called Hausen. That's like really freaky.
Yeah.
But,
No. It was called just House. He's like he's like this guy. He played the greatest American hero on TV. He moved into this house. It was haunted, and he ended up. Spoiler alert! He ended up blowing up the ghost with a grenade, which is really weird. I don't know how you do that. Ghost grenades. I had to kind of like point out like, yeah, that's stupid. That shouldn't be there. Why is that there? So I had a commentary. I was sitting there by myself, so I'm not like I had a whole lot of people around me. I was just letting her. There was nothing else to watch. So.
Because movies.
Because movies. That's right. So.
The guy who plays the ghost, the soldier, he was Bull.
Yeah, it was Richard Mull. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was Bull. It was like that's the only part the best part about it, the whole movie. So. Anyway, look him up. It's Wes Craven. And he is an atheist. All right, well, I want to thank everybody for coming. We'll be back next week with our regular longer show. Oh, and if you get a chance to, please go to secular.fm and listen to all the other podcasts out there that are atheist-related, secular podcasts, and our show is also on there. So we'll see you next time. This has been Packard Pokes At. We just... I can't do it. This has been Packard Pokes At. We just poked at your news.
And that's a wrap.
All right. Show title time. Oops, let me stop the recording.
I